You don't want to break that veil of an LLC or an S corporation and start having receipts or purchases of personal nature through your business, because that's another gigantic red flag that basically null and voids your business, according to Sheila, that if you start doing personal expenses through your business, that's why you take a salary, that's why you take a distribution, that's why you can take a bonus. Those are the things that, go buy your whatever, your Christmas gifts or whatever, not through the company itself. Those receipts just keep us all basically legit in the running our business.
Today on the podcast, we're talking with Kevin Salters. He's got a snow day, and we got 72 degrees and sunny down here in South Florida. He's been a guest on the podcast before, friend of the program. What's up, Kevin? Welcome back to the Green Industry Podcast.
Yeah, good morning, Paul. Thanks for having me. Honored to be back on. Must mean I have something to say.
Yeah, I was hyped this morning. I was looking at your Instagram story, and you put your top 5 podcasts that were most listened to last year. And coming in at number 1 was Joe Rogan. He's number 1 on a lot of people's list. And when you podcast for 3 hours, you typically get those watch hours racked up. But I came in number 4, so that pumped me up. Thanks for listening.
Yeah, and I wonder, like you said, if it's based analytically on the hours, yours being shorter programs, but more episodes compared to longer ones. And I'm kind of a gem to where I get to listen to podcasts all day long in my field. So the hours add up very quickly.
And what is that field for somebody who might have missed our previous conversation?
Sure. I own a turf fertilization, so as many people say, fert and squirt. I call it turf nutrition. I've changed my motto back in about 2018 to be more healthy bound in the soil. It doesn't mean that I don't use man-made synthetic products. I just try to incorporate some of the better soil practices and health in the turf itself, along with, we all need medicines from time to time. But if we are eating well and exercising, and we do the same for our lawns, we use less of those control products and better letting the soils do the work needed in the grass growing.
How many customers do you have? And let people know what city, state,
Sure. I'll give you my journey. So, I literally started this. I got my first paycheck when I was 14 years old in the green industry. I'm 55 years old now, so we can do some math from there. I was making $3.35 an hour, and my first paycheck was $122. And that was just, back then at that age, was amazing. And I think it was the addiction to having money at a tangible age at 14 years old, but also the reward of serving our clients and putting out a great product and getting affirmation for that. That's kind of kept me in it. I've been in the green space my entire career in many different avenues. Now I am turf nutrition, and currently we are in Suffield, Connecticut, which is right basically at the hub of the airport. If you've ever flown into Connecticut, it's right on the Massachusetts northern border. And we service close to 560 customers right now.
Wow. That's a lot.
It is.
Nowadays you own your own business, and what's kind of really drawn us together is the topic of knowing our numbers and the money, the finances, the business, the investing, the taxes, all of that fun stuff. It's fun to us, but most small business owners, it's not fun. Walk us through a little bit of your journey of really coming to know your numbers and seeing your profits increase, and share whatever you feel comfortable sharing, what a lawn care business owner should know financially and how you kind of organize your finances.
Sure. There's many different paths we can take in this. And if I get into the weeds, please interrupt me. But, I had this conversation not too long ago where the green industry, lawn care industry itself is probably one of the lowest investments to get into business with. And that's what allows a lot of our high school kids to get into it, side hustles to slowly get into it. But it's also one of the businesses that if you're opening a legit restaurant or a sports shop, you need to go to a bank or an investor with a business plan. And we really don't have that information when we're starting. And it's very important to listen to people such as yourself and your diabolical change of who you've had for guests recently on the business side of this, because that is what we're doing. We're running and managing a business. Yes, the work has to be performed, but more importantly, managing our team and making sure there's enough money left over so we can do this again. So what I think is very important in any of it, whether it's the fert and squirt side or if it's the lawn maintenance design build, is coming out of the gate, and as soon as you can afford to have consultants on board, please do, because everyone has to pay for their education one way or the other, whether it's going to be a 4-year college degree, whether it's going to be YouTube, whether it's going to be consultants such as that you have on your show that I've used. And this will turn it right around where I listened to your show, and I think it was probably 3 years ago where I made that free 15-minute call to Megan and Joey Corbally, the landscaping bookkeeper. And I was kind of nervous about the whole thing. I interviewed a few more of them, but it was just such a comfortable fit talking to Megan on the phone. And we had the same morals behind our business structures, which I think was important for her to take me on, but also for me to put my trust in them and doing what they're doing. And then you use them as well. And it just becomes infectious from there. They're teachers. They want you to understand. And when I worked for the larger companies, I had team members underneath me, CFOs, office managers that would bring me those reports. But when you're by yourself or a small business, you don't have that. And I call them basically my board members. I use them. And when I say them, it's also Sheila Chaplin, Reliable Tax Services, who is really my financial planner and tax preparer on that side of it. And when they all come together, I just had my meeting with all of them together. It's a sounding board of what's going to happen in 2025. And I think that's very important for any business owner to have, is to be able to bounce ideas. And not all ideas are good ideas. And sometimes you make an idea off of your passion and not off of the numbers, and they bring the numbers back to you with the right answers.
Yeah, that's so good. And that's exactly my team that I use, Megan and Joey. I met them at Lawn Care Life Conference. The first year I attended was right before COVID. So we had it in February of 2020. And I had met Megan and Joey, and I was really impressed with them. And so I asked them, I was like, hey, you want to be a guest on my podcast? And they're like, sure. And we're chit-chatting, Kevin. And I was like, they seem pretty cool, but I was like, I don't know if they want to, I don't know if they can help me, because my life and business and finances was very disorganized back in 2020. And anyway, we chatted, and I did the 15-minute phone call. I remember where I was. It was in the Lowe's parking lot when I was talking to Megan. I was super nervous because I had this big podcast. It wasn't big, but it was big actually back in 2020. But internally, my numbers were a little bit underperforming and disorganized. And I just felt like, man, I told Megan, I was like, it's like being butt naked when they look at all your numbers, and it's like, how am I really doing? And the fact of the matter was, when we kind of got into it, my business wasn't, at peak performance, Kevin. But now, 5 years later of working with them, or 4 to 5 years, whatever the math is, everything's busted at the seams, and it's good problems we're having with Sheila and Megan, and hey, what do we do with? How do we invest this extra money? And it's really transformed. But I say all that to say, I feel like there's probably some guys out there that are like, oh man, Kevin and Paul, they got it all together. I don't think Megan and Joey would want to work with a Chuck in the truck like me.
And you have a great relationship with them as well as me. My wife and I traveled down to see them this late summer, early fall, and got into their studio. They want to help the young, first starting smaller businesses so that they can have that foundation. That foundation is so important. I'm not the smartest guy in the world by any means. I barely have any education, but I've made a lot of mistakes. And it hasn't been until this electronic social media world that you're really the leader of and brought up, that these avenues are freely spoken about so that we can better each other. And it's amazing how many young entrepreneurs that are out there that really, they see their gross revenue and they think that's what they're making, but they have no idea of what their net profit for the year is going to be. And that's where Megan and Joey and Sheila come in, and they really can help you explain. And we're going through that right now. When there are good years and you have that extra revenue coming in, there's great ways to improve your lifestyle from that. And that doesn't mean just taking money and putting in your pocket, but funding a 401k, a solo 401k, doing an HSA, especially as a young person, if you can put some money, which is it is the absolute tax-free investment you can do, is your HSA, a health savings account, where that money is going to be there and used for any type of health services, even gym memberships to make yourself better, Band-Aids, sunscreen, all that stuff. That comes out of your business as a complete deduction, but it's used as a personal gain. And that isn't cheating. Those are the accountant laws that are out there that, Paul, you and I didn't know about at the time. And we're learning those and how to make our lives better. And Joey has put this into my brain. It really hit home when we met him, Megan, and I, and their son Neil. We're out to dinner, we're walking the beach, and it's all about buying your time back. It's so important. We go, but we all have just a very short time on this earth. It really is. And you really want to pick and choose where you're going to fight those battles. And I prefer to use professionals in that avenue to lessen my load and let me focus on working on my business.
Yeah. And what I like about having people who help us to have a heart of a teacher, so to speak, is that Sheila's able to explain to me the health savings account, the HSA, the solo 401k, the SEP IRA, the traditional IRA, the Roth IRA. There's not a right answer for a podcast audience across the board, because for somebody with more employees versus someone who's solo, there's different pros and cons to a SEP IRA versus there's so many variables that I feel, and again, or I didn't even give a disclaimer at the beginning of the episode. Kevin and I are not financial consultants, advisors. This is for educational and entertainment purposes only, this is just our experiences of figuring it out and having a little bit of success with, or maybe you have a lot of a success, but I'm kind of in the new era of being on a winning streak here, making smart decisions financially. But because there's so many variables, it's good to have a professional look at Kevin's specific situation of a married 55-year-old man with these, future goals. You're going to have a different approach to your investing and portfolio and tax planning than maybe a 21-year-old kid who's just starting out, who's living in his parents' basement. And so Sheila's just really helped me. I really feel like I got a clarity on what's going to produce the most wealth as we continue to win in business.
And I think, Paul, you said it nicely, when you're younger, living in the basement, a lot of times you have more money than you realize you do. And coming up with a plan and being able to talk to your board members, as I call them, on some strategic moves of maybe I don't go out to the bar every Friday night. Maybe I don't stop and get coffee every day and I make it. Those things at 19 years old, 22 years old in a Roth IRA, paid taxes prior before investment, goes in there, comes back to you totally tax-free. It is amazing how fast that money adds up. I'm proud to say that I've been married 30 years. My kids, I have twin boys that are 27 and a daughter 23. All of them have been basically investing since legally able to. And it's very, very important. Unfortunately, I was of the era where it wasn't the known thing, because I kind of grew up out when the P word kind of started to disappear, which are pensions, and they're no longer really available at all. So I was in that limbo of, are you going to find a job with a pension or are you going to invest yourself? But nobody knew what investment was in the early or late 1999 to 2005. It kind of was stumbled. Now it's very open, and these younger business people out there, they really need to focus on their future. And it can be as little as $20 a month. It doesn't have to be big numbers. You can open up a low load Vanguard or Fidelity for zero amount of dollars. You can put in $10 and walk away, and you have something that you can work towards. I think it's very, very important, especially with what is going on in our world of ever changing. We really aren't sure what the path is going to be.
Yeah. And just getting started, there's a chart where if somebody starts investing right out of the gate when you legally can, which I'm in my 30s, so I don't know what that age is. I'm assuming it's probably 18, Kevin, or
yeah, it's between 18 and 20. If you start at that window, boy, you are doing very well for yourself when you're 50.
Yeah, and there's a graph, the chart that I saw, that if you started at 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, and then even I think the chart had you stopping, which you shouldn't stop, but for the point of emphasizing compound growth and compound interest, it had this person who started at that age, and then I think they stopped at like age 30 in this famous chart, versus somebody who started in their 30s that was investing big chunks. The guy who started at age 18 had, a substantially more amount of money. And so if you can start early, I know Kevin's 55 and I'm 37, and you're like, you're listening, you're 18 years old and you're thinking about hopefully you're not thinking about the bar on Friday night. You're 18 years old, but you're thinking, you don't realize that $5 cup of coffee, and coffee is $5 now. I got a coffee recently, and it was a small little cup, Kevin. And she's like, it's going to be $4.28. And I thought she ran it up wrong. I'm like, look, I didn't want to ask her, but I'm like looking up at the thing, and because I didn't order a large, I ordered a small. I was like, $4.28. And anyway, it was crazy. But my point is, just get started, get familiar with putting that money. You can do, I think, $7,000 in 2025 into a Roth IRA. Max that sucker out, whatever you got to do, because if you max that out every year and you put it into the total stock market, I think that one's VTI or the S&P 500, the VOO, or there's different tickers. I've had Nick Bartolo, who's become my new friend. He's a wealth advisor that we've been having on the program. He kind of explains the pros and cons of all these things. But by the time you're Kevin and I's age, or you're getting into the later decades, you're going to have so much money. I just wish I would have started earlier, Kevin. I have a buddy, Mike Draper. He worked for one of these big financial wealth advisor companies back in the day, and he would always tell me, put $100 a month, Paul, into a mutual fund. We'd be out golfing. I was 18, 19, and I didn't listen to him until I was older. I just didn't understand the wisdom that he had, and he would always tell me the same thing. He'd tell me two things. He's like, that's the devil. That was his line. And he would say, put $100 a month in a mutual fund, just get started. And it went in one ear and it went out the other ear.
So, and I think a small example of how that can happen, it's something that I brought into when I first joined a relationship with Megan and Joey from the landscaping bookkeeper, I wanted to take, so in the fertilization business, a lot of times we offer a prepaid discount to pay for their entire year up front. So you get this influx of money that happens in prior to your season starting. And I would use a high yield savings account and nest egg that money. Now, it wasn't until recently that high yield savings accounts actually started to pay some decent dividends because of our interest rates being so low. Remember, when we have to borrow money and it charges more, but you can also make more money when you're putting it away in a nest egg. So I use that escrow account, and my goal at the time was to pay Megan and Joey's fees. That was my goal. Joey loved it. He says, hey, this is great. They watch it obviously on the backside as they do my books. Now I've taken that nest egg, and Paul, you know what the fees are, and we're not going to talk about that, but now they pay for Sheila, Megan, and Joey's fees for the year and my tax preparation services by taking and just being those buckets basically from Profit First. I use them in these electronic banks that are out there. I think we share one of the same banks, Ally. I have quite a few banks that we move things around, but I also believe in having a brick and mortar that you can readily go get funds or talk to someone in a branch if needed. But it's amazing. I love what I just downloaded my monthly statement from that bank to send over to Megan and Joey for reconciliation. And what the growth of this year is baffling. It's amazing.
Yeah, that's so good. And also, I mean, the high yield savings accounts right now they have good percentages, but even getting the money into the S&P 500 but if you go back to like 1926, and don't quote me on this, but I think the math is about like 10 to 11%. If you take the average from 1926 to current, all those decades, the S&P 500 has gone up about 10 to 11% annually. And so I just get that money. My little brother's a certified financial planner, a CFP. I think that might be what Sheila's designation is. Okay. Mm-hmm. So in that test, they say that test is harder than like becoming a doctor, becoming a lawyer. The CFP test, I was hanging out with a couple of these guys over Thanksgiving, and they're talking about how difficult this test is. And they try to give you these difficult questions out the gate to get you flustered. And they're like but anyway, the point is my brother, because I talk to him all the time, because he has these clients and it's all confidential. So he didn't like tell me their name, but he'll let me know he's dealing with a portfolio that's tens of millions of dollars, and this guy's net worth is worth 90 million, and all these rich guys. I'm like, what are they doing? What are they doing? What are they doing? And his observation is that so many of them, they've just been investing for so long that compound growth, by the time these guys are in their 70s, they have tens of millions of dollars, but they've just been investing for such a long time. And that's his point, is just have those armies of dollars, those dollars you have them working for you. Don't have them just going to coffee or beer or whatever. Like get them invested in a high yield savings account or in the stock market. S&P 500 is the Standard & Poor. That's the 500 largest companies, I believe, in the United States. But anyway, I'm obsessed with trying to maximize every opportunity we got.
As you should, because it's working for you. And to go back to that average of 10% return, 10, 11%, correct me if I'm wrong or someone may, but I believe Warren Buffett is another guy that's never, ever pulled money out of the stock market. Once it's in there, he will ride it out because he knows he does a matrix of the return on it.
Yeah, 100%.
If that's good enough for him, you see these day traders and guys that get nervous because there's something on the news that the stock market's going to crash. We all have to live through those. I mean, my dad did in 2008. He had to extend his retirement, but he extended a couple more years. He was healthy enough to do that, but it paid in dividends to where he's comfortably living right now. It makes sense.
Yeah, when you have money, when the market dips, and usually there's a correlation with real estate dipping if there's a big dip and all that other stuff. I have a friend, they're wealthy, and he wasn't an entrepreneur like us. He just worked a regular job and for a big company, but he had a good job. But they had bought this beautiful home closer to where Megan and Joey live than where I live in Florida. But the whole Gulf of Mexico is just stunning because the sunset each night goes over the Gulf of Mexico, and I love it. You're gonna love it down here, Kevin. I know you said
my entire family lives in Florida.
Yeah,
I'm the last survivor up here in Connecticut, so I'm leaving tomorrow, depending when you hear this. But I'll be going to Florida the beginning of December, and I'll be down until Wednesday. I'll go down and see family. My wife Stacy and I will fly down on a Friday. She'll fly back on Sunday for work, but then I'm going to the Land Management Magazine Summit. I was invited to that in Orlando. So I'll be there for 3 days and maybe twist my arm and stay a little longer. Who knows? Maybe come home. The beautiful thing is my season's over. I don't do snow anymore. I've done snow for 37 years. Last year was technically my first year not doing snow, but it really didn't snow up here in New England. And it was an amazing feeling to look out the window 6 times overnight and to be able to go back to bed, not have to worry about a thing. Because when you're in snow, when we did snow on the commercial side of it, we would have about 90 guys during the summer and 300 during the wintertime. And that was me. That was my job as the general manager and then the branch manager of Brightview. Once Russo Lawn and Landscape sold to Brightview, those headaches were all mine of managing that. And there's a lot of stress on it because snow, it's easy to plow snow. It's the risk management. It's making sure that safety is done on the property, not only for your team members, but for the people that are on there, so there aren't any accidents or slip and falls, because that's what, unfortunately, it's a lawyer-driven world right now. That's what everyone's looking to come after you for.
Yeah, well, you'll like it. It's about 70. Today's going to be 72 and sunny, and I live in South Florida, so we have it's warm year round. But I mean, I just absolutely love it. I'm watching on Instagram, snow in Connecticut. I mean, guys wearing hoodies and coats, and I send them a little picture of me out at the pool, and I'll probably go walk, possibly go walk the beach today. But I'm sure
you have a golf game somewhere stored up.
Yeah, I got a new golf shirt, so
I do like that shirt. That is nice. So what do you have planned for the winter? What do you have going up for shows? And let's talk about that, because I know you've made a diabolical change. I want to give you compliments that the interviews you had at the Equip was amazing. And thanks to you've said this a million times. If you don't schedule it, you're not going to go. If you don't schedule it, well, I reached out to you under your recommendations. Hotels booked. I'm there from Sunday until Friday next year.
Let's go.
Yep. It's just, it's a has to be, schedule's going to be set backwards from that day for my services and applications. And it's time to go and just to enjoy some of the fruits of our labor.
Yeah. Well, looking ahead to 2025, I have two events, that are permanent, glued, anchored, on the calendar. Now, will I go to other events? Absolutely. I'm open to spontaneously. I mean, it's not spontaneous. I would schedule it and have a little margin there. But the two events that are on my personal schedule that are, I have commitments to go to, is the Equip Expo next October. Mm-hmm. I believe it might be, I don't know the dates, but it's maybe like the 18th to 21st or something like that.
I think Sunday is the 19th. That's when I fly in. And then it carries through, and I fly out on Friday. I think somewhere right around there. Yeah,
but so you can check out the Equip Expo website and make sure you guys use the coupon code Paul when you get your tickets. You'll get 50% off. So, and their tickets are really cheap. They're with the coupon code Paul, it's like $12.50. But that one's in October in Louisville, and so that will be a whole week there. I have the same schedule. I'll probably come in on Sunday and then leave out hopefully on Friday afternoon. It's hard to get a flight out of there because 30,000 people are all trying to leave on Friday afternoon. That airport is just crazy Friday afternoon. But in the meantime, in between time, the Lawn Care Life Conference, I'm hosting it in addition to attending it. I started attending it in 2020. With Jason Creel, and I was beyond humbled when he asked if I would help because of the podcast and the reach of the audience. He's like, "Hey, would you like to be a little bit more involved in trying to get the word out about the event?" Because he's more of a one-trick pony. He has a YouTube channel, and that's about it, which is impactful, Kevin. But there's a whole different world out there that might not watch a fertilizer guy's YouTube channel, that might listen to my podcast, that didn't even know they could come get this information. So what we're doing this year, we had a survey at the end of the Lawn Care Life Conference last year. And we just asked people what could be better. And each complaint that there was, we fixed immediately. So some people complained breakfast wasn't good enough on Saturday morning. So we immediately contacted Chick-fil-A, asked them, "Hey, what's your, you guys cater to this address?" And they're like, "Absolutely." They're bringing, hot coffee, hot biscuit. I don't know what the Chick-fil-A menu is for breakfast, but they're bringing all you get a breakfast sandwich, you get the hash browns, you get the coffee, you get the whole thing you would get if you went Chick-fil-A. So we had that problem solved with one phone call. And the second biggest complaint was the event wasn't long enough. People were like, we literally drove 15 hours from Texas. We drove 12 hours. All these people are like, we spent 24 hours on the road, which I still don't know why they didn't get a plane ticket, but anyway, they drove. And they're like, but we were on the road longer than we were at the event. So what we did this year is we made it 2 full days. So last year was just the full day was Saturday. This year we're doing 2 full days. However, the Friday full day is for the VIP experience. So you got to get a VIP experience ticket to go all day on Friday. And then obviously you go all day on Saturday as well. And so we brought in a really good speaker, Brandon Gray. He works with Gray. He's Greg Crabtree's right-hand man. And Greg Crabtree wrote the book, Big Numbers, Simple, Straight Talk. Man, it slipped in my mind.
The pumpkin plan?
No, that's Mike McAllowitz.
Oh, that's right. Yep.
Simple Numbers. That's the name of the book. Simple Numbers, Straight Talk, Big Profits. So he's coming in to do a workshop on Friday. It's going to be 3 hours where he's just going to dive into what it actually means to know your numbers. How do you know when you can afford to hire a new employee? Should you hire a new employee? Can you afford to hire a new employee? How do you measure the marketing money you're spending? Just all these, as you're building your business, there's so much stuff to do, but at what pace do you do it? And at what, he's going to be answering all those questions as well as whatever individual questions we have for him about investing and tax preparing and all of that stuff. And then we're going to be having a VIP luncheon on Friday. And then that workshop's going to be all day on Friday. So to answer your question, what I got going on in 2025 is February 21st and 22nd in Springville, Alabama is the Lawn Care Life Conference. I'm super excited for that. You're bringing your wife maybe this year?
We're hoping to. I'm all signed in, ready to rock and roll for the whole entire event. The early stuff. If we can break my wife away she works in the school system, so they really don't get vacation times other than school vacation, and they just got back from their winter break. So for her to take a little more time, we're going to try to pull it off. I'm hoping to. I really do.
Yeah, for those of you up north in the Connecticut area, I mean, it ain't no Florida, but it is. I think last year was around 60 and sunny, or maybe 65 and sunny. It's much better weather than up north.
And I'll tell you, if you are going and you want to bring your spouse, and even if your spouse doesn't go to the event, downtown Birmingham has some great open air eatery. I don't even know what you want to call it. I mean, they have a AstroTurf field, small for the kids to play with a jumbotron. All the restaurants kind of back up to this gigantic open air seating area where you can get anything from Italian to wine to everything. It was a wonderful night. I went there with a bunch of people that I met at the conference. We all met up there, made new friends in the market from everywhere across the country, and we broke bread and we're probably there for 4 or 5 hours. It was a great time. So there's a lot of neat little things to do, especially like you said, Paul, if you're from the north and you want to get rid of your winter coat and maybe just put on a light sweater.
Yeah, sweater weather. Now, I will let you guys know, this is exciting. What we're doing this year, again, we did this survey, and Jason and Tracy are very hospitable, and they just care about serving people so well. And they just take they read all the surveys and like, oh man, somebody complained about this. And then it's like, let's fix it immediately. So this year's perfect. So another thing that we're fixing for this year, if you will, is when the event ended last year, it ended at about the evening, like 4 or 5 p.m. So somewhere in that range, we kind of started buttoning things up. But then Saturday night, what happened was, a group of people went here, a group of people went there. Some people went here. Some people didn't know where to go. We didn't want it to be cliquey or groupie or whatever. So what we're going to do this year is we're just going to have a gigantic pizza party on Saturday night at the venue. It's going to be, the event's officially going to end at, 5 p.m. or whenever we give away the mower. But after that, whoever wants to hang out, instead of people going to barbecue versus Italian versus pizza and separating off, we're just going to offer the room. Jason and I are going to stick around and we're going to order pizza, and whoever wants to hang out Saturday night, we're just going to have a big pizza party and casually hang out at the venue for so we can just get more fellowship time. So that will be a lot of fun.
Will there be, and you don't have to mention if it's not locked in, but some of the your friends and ringers that were there last year, are they going to be there as well?
So who's confirmed coming, and I don't know. There's a lot of people on the bubble, but confirmed coming is Naylor and Pajak. Those are my boys. They're coming. Yep. Profits with Pajak. Joey Coberly, Megan's on the bubble because I don't know if she had her baby today or yesterday or tomorrow, or I haven't
waiting to hear, literally waiting to hear.
Yeah. So I had texted her a few days ago. I just said, any baby yet? ? And then I got a real short reply, like not yet. And so you don't want to bother Mama Bear when she's about to have a baby pop out, but because she's having her baby in December, she probably is going to have to stay at home with the newborn. So Joey, and I forget the lady's name who's there, like marketing.
Stephanie.
Yeah. So I think they're going to come. Well, I know Joey's going to come, but I don't know if Megan's going to come because of the baby. So Joey, it might be just Joey Coberly from the landscaping bookkeeper this year because of baby number 2 for the Coberlys. And congratulations. By the time this episode comes out next week, they'll probably have already popped out the baby. The big hitters, Alan Hain, he only does one event a year, the Lawn Care Nut, and that's Jason's event just because he loves Jason Creole. Which again, I love Jason Creole. They're just wholesome, genuine, good people. They just have a servant's heart. Jason's wonderful. So Alan's coming. Andy Mulder, do you know Andy Mulder?
I know of him, but I've never met him. And when we go back to Alan Hain, he was the keynote speaker, and it looks like he's going to be again. I was blown away. I didn't know what to expect. You see him on YouTube and about his Yard Mastery program, but his keynote speech was amazing. It was totally not what I expected. It was a really good hour of education from him.
Yeah, Alan's smart, and he shift gears a little bit. His story is unique because he used to work at, I think, True Green,
military prior to that.
Yeah, and then he started his YouTube channel, which grew, and he was just telling everyone, "Hey, go get," and excuse me because I'm not in your world, malignarite. How do you say it?
That's good. Milorganite, which is a biosolid, high iron content.
Okay, well, I do know iron makes the grass green because I would buy a product called Ironite. And that stuff would work. I'd put it on my customer's yard and it would green up and they would be like, it would be greener than the guy's next. I just went to, Lowe's Home Depot. They had this product called Ironite, and I didn't know what I was doing, but I know Ironite worked. So anyway, Alan would tell people to get the Milorganite. And it would go off the shelves. Like it would be sold out at the big box stores. And they would be, but it was just from one guy on YouTube saying, "Hey, here's what I use." So then he had, light bulb went off. He's like, if I tell people to go get this product and it's sold out the big box stores, he's like, maybe I should just sell it myself. And so long story short, he basically created his own version of it with similar ingredients, properties. I don't know what you guys call the mixture of the iron and nitrogen and.
No, you're doing good.
That world, man, I could tell you how many yards I burned and how many weeds I didn't kill, and I sucked at fertilizer and weed control. I ended up subcontracting out to a company. His name's Russell Skipper, and he is a genius with that stuff. He's got dialed in. Once I hired him, all my yards were weed free and looking awesome. But anyway, my point with Alan is he's just an entrepreneur. So what he did is he started selling his own fertilizer. And he publicly shared at the event last year that they did $14 million of revenue. And that's, I don't know what his profit was. I didn't dive too deep into it, but he's a smart fellow. So his profit had to be millions of dollars. So it was really exciting. And I know he's just been growing since then. So it's always good learning from entrepreneurs.
Yeah. And like you said, I was totally not expecting the conversation he had or the speech he had, a presentation, I'll call it, because it was very, very good. And I think it took everyone's minds to a different level of what they were thinking and kind of got the juices flowing and the gears going for the rest of the conference.
Yeah. And the theme for Lawn Care Life Conference this year is the knowing your numbers theme. So we brought in Andy Mulder. He called Dave Ramsey. And I remember where I was when I was listening to this episode. I was in my kitchen originally, and then I ended up in my shower. But you guys don't want to picture me in my shower, so anyway. Well, our audience is 90% men. Ain't nobody want to think about me taking a shower. But I have a Bluetooth speaker that I listen to podcasts, audiobooks. I'm always learning, always. Whether I'm in my shower, whether I'm shaving, whether I'm walking the beach, in the gym, I'm listening to either a podcast or an audiobook. So I was listening to Dave Ramsey's Entree Leadership podcast, and this guy from Crown Point, Indiana calls in, Andy, landscaper, Crown Point, Indiana. And I thought to myself, like, oh, I don't know who that is. I don't even know what Crown Point, Indiana is. And he's talking to Dave Ramsey, like, yeah, he's like, I got $1 million just sitting in like you said, a high yield saving account, and I don't really know what to do with it. And Dave Ramsey's like, you're a stud. You got $1 million. So he's like, well, is your house paid off? And Andy's like, oh yeah, we paid off the house a long time ago. And so Andy's debt free, but he saved $1 million and just like being a stud. And so, Dave kind of rebuked him a little bit, like, well, let's get that money working for you. Let's get it, real estate investor. Let's do better than just, sitting in a savings account. But anyway, it was awesome that Andy has that level of success of being debt free and, $1 million just sitting around. So he's going to be sharing his story and hanging out with us and speaking. And I'm really looking forward to that. He is such a hardworking, smart fella with good values, good principles, good success. And then the keynote speaker, or not keynote, but Greg Crabtree's team has a whole seminar. Like they'll go to companies and they have this whole structure of the topics. And I'd have to dig through my email to pull up the itinerary, but they have the different things scheduled of what he's going to be teaching us. But it's all themed on business, finances, and the money aspect. But his name is Brandon Gray. But that's going to be for the VIPs only on Friday. It's going to be basically an all-day workshop with luncheon in between, a Q&A in between, but it will take up the whole day, and then we'll take a break in the evening, or late afternoon, and then we'll come back for the regular evening session that the general admission will get there on Friday evening. So was that detailed enough?
Yeah, no, I think it's, it's easy to read a piece of paper or see an ad on Instagram of what it's going to be. But for you speaking of it, I think it's important because it's, there's a lot, you go to a lot of events and a lot out there that can be larger scale. And I'm not downplaying this as being smaller scale, but this is more of an intimate setting. It's big and there's plenty of people and resources from across the country, but it's very intimate and everyone is very open in their conversations. I remember me and Ian Tomasak, we drove into the parking lot early just to get our bearings because we flew in actually accidentally on the same plane. And I had him with me as my co-pilot, but being the old guy, he was telling me where to go. It was pretty embarrassing. But be that as it may, we drove in and next thing you know, here comes Paul ripping out of the door. Hey, come on in, park the car. It's like 11 o'clock. It doesn't start till 3. I mean, it's a very welcoming situation. Like you've said, pure Southern hospitality, which was awesome.
Yeah, that's rooted. There you go, rooted development. That's rooted with Jason and Tracy. They have such a heart to want to serve. And the cool thing is it's capped out at 200. So, and Alan even told us, he's like, man, we could easily get 500-600. He's got a big email list. He's got a big following. There's people that want to meet Alan Hain. He's just in the fertilization and weed control world. He's kind of like the guy, you know what I mean? And he's like, this should be 500-600 people, and we could get a bigger venue, and we could, and Jason and I were like, no, let's just keep it on the family property and keep it. The only problem with it being at Jason's family's property is it's a max of 200 people because the room, it's big, but it fills up pretty quick, and so with the fire marshal and all of that, we can comfortably fit about 200 people in the room. And so that's what we're going to, we're having the same venue again this year. And when the tickets sell out, they'll sell out. So it's not going to be that big event. And like you said, Kevin, the cool thing about a smaller event is if you want to go up and talk to John Pajak, he'll give you a big hug, but he'll talk to you. If you want to go talk to Joey Coverly, if you want to go talk to Alan Hain, if you want to go talk to Andy Mulder, you just go up and you just talk to him.
Just be prepared. If you go and talk to John, you're going to get a hug that crushes your soul. He's got to be one of the best bear hugs out there. It's amazing. And he hugged me and we didn't know each other, but 12 minutes. It's an amazing person.
Yeah. John doesn't shake hands. He gives you a hug. So,
and I think one more thing we want to talk about, which we neglected, is that outside there'll be vendors. So there'll be equipment to try, test. I went through all of them. There's one I have my eye on speaking to again. I do use a lot of electric blowers with my system, trying to be a little bit more sustainable, but they work really well with the machines that I run. And I've tested them there, and this is Crush Power Equipment, and really want to start working with implementing some of their equipment and building a relationship with them with their handheld blowers and possibly a backpack blower. So those are all there that you can go out and try and really put them up against a gas one if it's there, the mowers, spreaders, which is fun. Everyone's outside, again, smaller, so everyone gets to try everything. You're not going to miss anything because it's over in the west parking lot or the east parking lot. It's all right there. So it's very, very amicable for everyone to get what they really want out of a show.
Yeah, no, thanks to all the sponsors. They'll be back, Crest Commercial and Ferris and Xmark, and we have some new sponsors coming in. So that there'll be more equipment this year than there was last year, but there will be the same. If you came last year and you're like, oh, I want to try that Ferris again or that Crest or that Xmark, all those guys are going to be back. And then we'll have a couple of special announcements. We've had couple new companies that are going to be out there as well. So it's going to be packed out there, but hopefully we get some beautiful weather again. It was just perfect last year. It's about sunny and pleasant temperatures.
Yep, it was great. I'm looking forward to it. It's always fun time.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to ask you a few more questions that are frequently asked questions around here about business entities, taxes, investing. If you have a few more minutes.
I'd love to.
Okay. Are you an S Corp, and can you explain why you chose the entity that you have? Great
question. And yes, I do file as an S corporation. And for what that means for people, you could be a DBA or a sole proprietor. You could be an LLC, or you can file as an S corporation. All of those all mean that the money that you make, gross revenue, gross profit that goes into taxes, still trickles down to your personal income on your 1040. But at each level, there's some tax advantages through those. And the LLC is more of a protection piece that's going to take you a little bit more personally away from the business. You're still going to pay the numbers of tax that you think. But then when you go into an S corporation, there's a whole another layer that helps you prepare for your future, let's say. And what that means is my wife and I, we take a salary from the business. Having an S corporation, now we're able to financially take a distribution from the profits of your company, which we have set up through Sheila and in our recording files of our monthly meetings and our quarterly meetings of that dollar amount. And what that does is it allows you to take that money without paying payroll tax on that. And what I mean by that is whenever you get a paycheck, if you're working for someone or you're writing one from yourself, the company itself has to match the FICA and all those fees that are in there off of what it is. So they're doubling those costs. So as a business owner in your salary, you're getting dinged twice as much. So when you do an S Corp, it allows you to take some of those fees that are going percentages against the money and not have to, the government doesn't require you to fill them out or give them to them. So that's another savings. And that was all under advisement through Sheila and Joey to move to the next level because of these situations.
Very, very well said. And when it comes to the payroll, so when you're an S Corp, you can't just willy-nilly pull money out like when you're a sole proprietor as an owner's draw. You have to pay yourself as an employee. Is there a company, this is hashtag not sponsored, so I don't know what your answer is going to be, but how do you use a payroll company, or how do you actually pay yourself? And again, this isn't sponsored, so I don't know if Kevin's company is good, bad, or indifferent, but how does that work?
So great question. And again, I think it's just another layer that as a small business owner, one, it takes it off of your plate. If maybe you're a larger scale and you have more employees and you have an office staff that can manage your payroll and do that, that's wonderful. But I want to focus on what I'm good at, and doing payroll isn't. And through the advisements of Sheila Chaplin and Megan and Joey, we went with ADP. It's set up. And then it's also important when you're looking for a paycheck, you need to do research of what your pay should be valued at based on your business. So you can't just say, it's going to be $5,000 a month. Well, Sheila's going to make you do the math backwards in industry standards of what does a turf manager or what does a vice president of a company make, what in your industry, what are those rates? So what they're trying to do is protect you from any red flags raising up to the IRS that they want to come and gingerly go through your books, which never happens. It costs a lot of money to be audited. So we use Sheila and Megan and Joey to lessen our exposure to a possible audit of some sort.
That's good. My next question is about investing. And you had briefly mentioned, and we kind of threw out some terms at the top of the program about a solo 401k. I mentioned a SEP IRA, SEP IRA. We both were talking about a Roth IRA. There's the traditional IRA. There's so many of these things, and guys might be listening, and it's like we're talking French or we're talking Chinese. Can you walk us through what you've learned about investing? Obviously, your children are on the straight and narrow, and they're maxing out their their Roth IRAs. But just give us a little bit of a crash course in what you've learned about investing, what you personally do, and what advice you have to lawn care business owners out there who maybe aren't taking advantage of all these wonderful compounding growth opportunities.
Sure. I think we both are guilty of it, and not by our own choice. Is starting early is the key. It really is the key to financial freedom in the future. And we all live within the moment, unfortunately, and even those small amounts. Now, when we go into the investment tools themselves, so if you're a DBA sole proprietor, you're going to be limited to what you can fund yourself with for the best tax advantages. You can always do a 401k or go into Vanguard, set up a 401k, fund it. That's going to be pre-tax money as long as you're showing some type of revenue coming in and you're having a paycheck where it can come out of. It has to come out of a payroll service. Roth IRA is after-tax money. So let's say you get a $5,000 check a month. That's in your bank account. You've already paid your FICA, FIDA, SUDA, all that crazy stuff. Whatever's left, maybe you comfortably can take $500 a month and put that away. You've already paid the government their part on it. That's going to sit there and grow until you take it out at age 70, 71, or sooner, depending on how your journey goes. That money's tax-free. Everything that's earned and grown on that from Senator Roth of New Jersey, and they've always wanted to take this away, that money itself is going to come to you on your dividends, and you're not going to have to pay taxes on it. Now we get into solos and SEPs.
Before we get into solo and SEPs, let me just say this about the Roth IRA and it growing. When you put it in your account, whether you're using Fidelity, Vanguard, Charles Schwab, there's a whole bunch of kind of like top tier companies. You open the Roth IRA, if you put $500 a month in, I think it's 583 a month would max you at the 7,000. There's a ceiling. You can only put 7,000 in there a year. Whether you do that one time or whether you do that in bunches and chunks, when you put it in your account, whether it's Fidelity, you said you use Vanguard or
Vanguard. I have both Vanguard and Fidelity.
Okay, Vanguard, Fidelity, Charles Schwab. Those are. I think TD Ameritrade was merged into Charles Schwab. I think those are the three big ones. I might be missing one, but you have a company like that. You open up the Roth IRA. You put the $7,000 in there. It's just sitting there. So you once it's sitting there, it's not growing. You actually have to take it and make an investment with it, whether you put it into the S&P 500, the 500 biggest companies in the United States, or you put it in the total stock index, which I think is VTI, or I know some guys like that VGT, the technology growth one from Vanguard, or whatever your risk tolerance and knowledge and advisor suggests you do. You then probably want to put that money into actual index funds or mutual funds or something so that it can grow with the market.
Yeah, Paul, that's a great point. And I'm trying to remember from conception with Vanguard, when you first started, I think it's pretty intuitive that you can go through a checklist and they'll ask you the questions once you have some money in there, how you want to move forward with it before you talk to a financial investor. So like you said, it is getting some return instead of just sitting there in a non-escrow account, basically. And we talk about low fees or no fees, and they call them fund loads. So what you were looking for is some type of investment tool Charles Schwab, Vanguard, Fidelity, that has no loads, so that you're not paying every time they move it or you make a change or your advisor asks you to make a change. Very important, because you can get into some of them where the fees can circumvent what has returned on a bad month of the stock market. So you have to be careful in that.
Yeah, one more thing before we get into the solo 401k and the SEP and all that. I highly recommend using a financial advisor. So my maybe weakness is I use too many. So I got Sheila. She's a certified financial planner. I got my little brother who's a certified financial planner. I got Nick Bartolo, who's I think it's called a CFA. He's got a different initial, but he's anyway. And then there's other people that I don't know if they want me to mention their name, but I got a whole council that I'm asking, where should I make this investment? Why? Like, I'm asking all these questions. So don't listen to Paul and Kevin. Oh, I was listening to this podcast. I was out in my truck. What we're telling you to do is to hire a professional and we're telling you who our professionals are. So you can hire Nick Bartolo. You can hire Sheila Chaplin. You can hire Megan and Joey. But Sheila's more of going to give the investing advice, but you want to get a financial advisor who can look at your situation and variables and give you the best advice that they can give you. So don't take what Kevin and I are saying. Oh, well, Kevin said do this. Paul said do this. We're just sharing our experiences of what we have set up, but you need to hire your own financial advisor and, have them guide you.
I couldn't agree anymore. And I am not good at making these decisions whatsoever. Again, that's why I hire professionals. And it's taken me a while. I mean, please remember, my journey was just like your journey, Paul, and people that are out in the field right now. We had 3 kids. We never put our kids in daycare. We had a hard time sometimes rubbing 2 nickels together, but I was born with a disease of being Irish, of just constantly working, and the green industry can provide for you. So when you do have that extra little bit of money, I know a lot of us want to be like, hey, I got an extra $100. I'm going to treat myself, maybe fancy dinner, spa, whatever. But if you can afford to take a percentage of your treat and put it away, we can't say that enough, Paul, because we've lived that experience. And this younger generation, we want to protect and help them be better than we were in itself. But back to our investment tools, once you get into that S corporation level or filing as an S corporation, and you are getting a paycheck and you have distributions, now if the profits are there, you're looking for ways to legally enhance your portfolio. And you're able to do that as an employee of your business or entity by funding it directly through profits of the business that go into your personal paycheck because you are an employee of the business itself. And now it helps you on a tax shield of profits that you have to report for the end of the year. But it also helps you increase your net worth of your work and value of what you did for the last year within your company.
That's good. And what's kind of, if you feel comfortable kind of sharing what you kind of have set up, what works best for you?
Well, right now a solo, and I have another meeting with Sheila this month, because if this is something that you want to do and you are at the S corporation level and you want to fund some of these, it's not until like a 401k, you can go up until you file your taxes and put that money in. But if you're going to do it within the business itself, as you as an employee or your wife or a team member that you have, it has to be done by the end of the calendar year. So we have to do that by December 31st or it's null and void. And I learned that the hard way, because last year I thought I was all doing good. And I was actually at my son's house in Providence, and we moved money over because he helped me set everything up into the solo. And I emailed Sheila real quick, and all I got back was an email. No. I'm like, uh-oh. So I quickly got on the phone, canceled that transaction, because it was after December 31st. So the money that I put in that I had to leave in because I made a transfer works towards this year, but it wouldn't work towards the 2023 calendar tax year, which I thought was going to happen. So I learned that one the hard way.
Yeah, there you go. And that just goes back, Sheila's got her attention on the new rules, the legislation, the understanding of all of this stuff, because couple clicks and you can really mess things up. In regards to taxes, what's your strategy to saving to make sure that you can pay? You mentioned the FICA and the SUCA and all this stuff just makes me mad. But at the end of the day, we have to pay what we owe. And before we can pay what we owe, we have to save. So we have the money to pay what we owe. What's kind of helped you be able to have the money to pay these tax bills?
So I'm a little bit of a rarity, and Megan and Joey say this all the time. I don't spend money, and it's not that I'm cheap, because I'm not. I really want, I've had the training through the corporations that I worked for, from small business up to the large scale, of working towards a gross profit and a net profit goal or margin for the end of the year. So that's always in my mind of like, can we build? And I've already run my numbers for this year, even though it's the beginning of December, and my growth, if I look at it one way, is 29%. And if I look at it another way, is 37%. And it'll be interesting to see where that boils out in net profit. And that happens from something. It's from growth, but it's also from being efficient, having root density, having equipment paid for, not having notes, all those things where you can really be efficient. But what I did in the beginning was one of those high yield savings accounts. Let's say I use Ally, and within that, you can have buckets. And Mike McAllowitz, Profit First, explains that. And it doesn't mean you have to follow his method to a T, because it kind of gets a little crazy of all the different banks he wants you in. But I have 4 different banks. 2 are electronic, 2 are brick and mortar. And if you figure in my area, if we can put about 30% away of any revenue coming in or profits coming in, that's going to set you up fine for your schedule of quarterly taxes for federal. We also have to do quarterly taxes in Connecticut for state.
Yeah, we don't have, were you going to say something else there, Kevin?
No, but a lot of states don't. Like you, Florida doesn't have a state income tax. We do, so they like to see their money every quarter as well.
Yeah, but this is for entertainment and educational purposes only. This is not, this is not tax planning advice. You need to talk to a professional like Sheila Chaplin or somebody with those credentials who has a heart of a teacher. But that 30% of revenue, there's so many business owners that I talk to, whether you're from Connecticut or Michigan or states like Texas, Tennessee, Florida, we don't have state income tax, but still the real estate here is outrageous. I mean, I was looking at a house the other day and I was like, oh my gosh, I was thinking about getting this house and it was $22 million. And I was like, oh my gosh, I thought it was going to be like $750,000, because I'm just looking at it. I'm like, yeah, it's nice. And, and I look at the thing and said 22 million. And I was like, 22 million. I was like, if it was in Ohio, it'd be like 750,000. But, when you got the Gulf of Mexico in your backyard. But my point in all of that is 30% seems like a good starting place. If you're just starting out and you have $100 come into your business, take 30 of it and transfer that into your Ally high yield savings account. So it's earning a little bit of interest. Just like, I don't know what your Ally is. It like 3.75 or something like that percent.
I just checked this morning. It made it close to 4 when things were good. It's 3.85 right now.
3.85. That sounds about right. And that's about the best you're going to get from my research. There's several high yield savings accounts out there. My local credit union, I just checked with them in Florida and it was 3.6%. But you while the money's sitting there, you want to make, have it earning some interest. So don't just put it in. I was talking to my buddy who makes a lot of money. He had his money in Wells Fargo just sitting there in some low interest account. I was like, dude, you could be making, well, anyway, I was trying to help him. But anyway, 30% revenue. So what that means is Mrs. Smith pays us $100 for the service. You take 30 of that and you put it in your tax savings account. Or if you have $1,000, you're doing a bigger job, they pay you $1,000, you would take 300. I don't have my calculator, 30%, 300, put it in the tax savings account. You do a $10,000 job for guys that are in landscaping and, stuff like that. That's very common. You would take 3,000 in the 30% revenue plan and you put that in the tax savings account. So when your tax obligations come due, the money's already sitting there in that account. And you can, typically if you save 30% of the revenue, you're going to have your butt covered and no surprising bill.
And I just want to say that if business owners are thinking that, 30% is all I need to save. Well, in Connecticut, we have sales tax, so you have to prepare for that. And then you have all your other expenses in a business. So that $100 that you're only taking 30 of it just for the federal/state part of it, there's many other expenses that have to come out of that $100. And that's where I think knowing your numbers, the lawn care life, getting deeper into there, profits by paycheck, really understanding what it costs to run your business, because that $100 is not your $100 yet. You'd be lucky if you're going to get 20 out of that 100.
Yeah, that's so true. And like Kevin said, John Pajak, he's helped me. I went through his budgets, break evens, bottom lines program years ago, and that was shocking, eye-opening. I can't tell you how many conversations with Joey Coberly that he's helped me. It was years ago, Kevin, where we set a goal, because what happened was we do a monthly meeting. We get on the call, and my expenses from the previous month was greater than my income. And I was justifying it. And I was like, well, I had to buy that, and that bill came up, and I was justifying it all to Joey. And he was like, he wasn't buying all my reasons of why my expenses was greater than my income. And he's like, let's set the goal for next month. Let's look at what are your expenses going to be next month. And we looked ahead, and we knew exactly what the amount was going to be. And he's like, all right, let's make sure whatever you got to do, if you got to go get an extra job or sell some extra work, like, you have to make more than that this month. And since that month, I've never had that problem ever again. My income has been greater than my expenses in my business for years now. We're on, I don't know if it's 48 months or 50 months, or we're on a hot streak, but Joey helped me look at my real numbers. And now I'm in the habit of always, I'm already looking at January 2025. What are my business expenses? What's it looking like that month that my outgo is going to be? I have to make more than that. I already know before January 1, 2025 hits. I know what I got to make that month so that my income's always greater than my expenses.
And Paul, I think that's so important. You sparked a little fuse of, as an entrepreneur, we're basically, we're seek, hunt, kill people. That's that's what drives us. And Megan and Joey, especially Joey, can turn it around to goal-driven tasks that they want you to perform. And that helps you grow without even really sometimes knowing you're growing, and make sure whatever type of bookkeeper, advisor you're bringing in kind of has that same mentality. And, before I had Megan and Joey, I just had the basically old CPA where you bring in all your paperwork, your receipts, all that stuff, and you go back 3 days, 5 days later, give them a handsome check for whatever they just did, and you sign on the bottom, and you had no guidance whatsoever. Mm-hmm. They set up those goals for you, and Joey said, hey, listen, Paul, here's where we are, and here's where you want to be. And we've done the same thing. We had that goal of me working off the interest of the high yield to pay for their services. And then the next one that I've had, and this is just a mental one, because that's just the way I think, is I get aggravated when, and this is something that probably just you and a few other listeners know about, but when you've missed a couple of receipts that you haven't entered into their system so that they can reconcile them, like, it's a goal to look at the report from them, like, oh, I don't have any receipts that I missed and put in. And that just helps me stay on top of your daily tasks. And that's just kind of the way they set up their entire service.
Yeah, I'm guilty of that. If you miss a receipt, Megan sends you this keeper question thing where it's like, this $12.48 charge, or $746.11. What was this for? And Kevin and I have made that mistake before, and it's extra work for Megan. But if we're and I use Jobber, QuickBooks, my bank, they're all interconnected somehow. That technology is beyond me, but Megan set it up to where my bank talks to Jobber, my CRM talks to QuickBooks Online, QuickBooks Online talks to my bank. They're all connected. And so if I have a receipt, all I have to do is I have an iPhone. All I have to do is take out my iPhone. I hit the QuickBooks Online app, QuickBooks opens, and then I hit snap receipt button on QuickBooks Online. And then I just hover it over it might say like, move closer to the receipt or whatever. And I just take a picture of the receipt. And so that way it uploads to QuickBooks, and then Megan can see every expense. And then some of my stuff that's online, that's like an automatic, like my insurance automatically just draws on a certain day of the month. And then they email me, hey, your payment was successful. And I just forward that email to this QuickBooks Online email that Megan set up for me, and it forwards it to her. Or she has a team, so I don't exactly know who from her team actually logs that transaction, but that was Paul's auto insurance. And so, I have the same goal is to not miss the record keeping of any expense in the business.
And the whole purpose of this, if we start circling back to why we do this, is you don't want to break that veil of an LLC or an S corporation and start having receipts or purchases of personal nature through your business, because that's another gigantic red flag that basically null and voids your business, according to Sheila, that if you start doing personal expenses through your business, that's why you take a salary, that's why you take a distribution, that's why you can take a bonus. Those are the things that, go buy your Christmas gifts or whatever, not through the company itself. So those receipts just keep us all basically legit in the running our business, and it's just simple proof. Another thing with Megan and Joey, since we're on that topic real quick, they don't pay your bills. They're just showing you and doing your reconciliation of all your accounts, building your cash balance sheet down to a zero at the end of the year so that you can bring it to whoever your tax preparer is with all the proper information, with all the right buckets, and then your tax service is either happy, or Sheila, who they work together with, goes very smooth and easy for that process.
Yeah, that's really good. Was there anything we're leaving out here that needs addressed, or anything else you want to share about taxes, investing, business?
I had two more, but I can only remember one, and maybe it'll come back to me. But in that investment tool we talked about an HSA as well, health savings account. Something to think about. And again, Paul and I are not advisors, but I just see the benefit of this because it is 100% tax free. That will never go away in your entire life. And it actually can be transferred to a spouse or a significant other down the road or as needed. So, having that, and the one that I used for that, because Vanguard does not do that, is Fidelity has an HSA. Very easy to set up. If I can do it, anyone can do it. Sheila didn't do it for me. But the benefits of that, and if you are into, staying healthy, eating well, working out, many gym memberships are covered under your HSA. So if you're paying for a gym membership out of pocket right now of your personal money, and you have an S corporation or able to do this as an LLC, you'd be fool not to pay that gym membership as a benefit through your HSA, because it's 100% legal. Anytime you buy Tylenol, anytime you buy sunscreen, women, feminine products, any of that stuff can come out of that account instead of coming out of your personal, account. And what the guest that you're bringing on, Paul, and moving forward with, the understanding is that these people that own these larger businesses, they have very little personal exposure to debt and expenses because they use the legal tax laws that are out there that we just don't know about yet. We're all learning them, and you're helping bring those to us to learn better so that we can use the system that's created above us.
Yeah, that's really well said. Do you remember the other thing?
No, I don't, but it'll come to us. I'm sure we'll talk again.
Yeah, and you guys can come hang out with Kevin and I in Alabama. Again, and Pajak and Joey Coberly and Andy Mulder. And Brandon Gray. If you want to know your numbers, get your butt to Alabama, February 21st through 22nd, no matter what stage of the journey you're on, because you start having these conversations, and it really inspires you to invest money, to save money, to be winning with money. It's so peaceful when I can meet with Sheila and it's like, here's your bill, here's what you got saved. Okay, great. It's just when everything's in order, but it takes great intentionality along the way of making sure we're saving that 30% or whatever your number is. It might be more or less of what amount you should be saving of the revenue that you have coming in. But I've talked to so many people that are in that 30% game plan.
Yeah.
$1,000 comes in, I'm putting $300 immediately into that, whether it's Ally or whatever your bank account is that you can get the best interest rate on. Save that money so when that tax bill's due, you have money to save. And then from there, when you're caught up on your taxes and you're current with your taxes, it's fun to start investing money. And Warren Buffett, I put out an Instagram reel yesterday of this quote from Warren Buffett, but he explains that most people save if they have anything left over, which usually you don't have anything left over because you spend it on coffee and Chipotle and pizza and beer and whatever you spend it on, right? But Warren Buffett's perspective is he prioritizes saving first. And after he maxes out his saving opportunities and investing opportunities, then he'll spend after that. And that's obviously worked out for him.
I think so.
But he's still's got that. He lives in that Nebraska. I believe he's still alive. He's in his 90s last I checked, but he drove like it was a Buick or Cadillac that was like 8 years old, and he lives in this regular looking house in Nebraska, and he's a unique fella.
Remember, when you can find more joy in saving than in spending, you're going to set yourself up for a pretty decent lifestyle moving forward.
Yeah, that's so good. All right, Kevin, if you got anything else, this is your time to speak. Otherwise, I'm going to go do my morning walk in this Florida sunshine and get they say to get sunlight in the morning. So
yeah, get your vitamin D, which is so important for our health. That sunlight is amazing. No, I'll just be envious of your weather, but I'll be there in about 36 hours. So I'll take it all in, flying into West Palm when we get down there, and then make our way up to Orlando throughout the week. But no, it's always
bring that sunscreen with the HSA real quick. I did ask, you have to have that connected to like a health insurance plan that's approved.
High deductible. Has to be a high deductible,
right,
and it'll say that right in your plan. It'll say high deductible. And a lot of plans nowadays that you have, or if you're under a spouse's plan, they're almost all high deductible just because the rates are going so high. The negotiations, they come back to all these high deductible plans that allows you to have an HSA.
Cool. Well, I appreciate your time. One last thing I need is a picture for the thumbnail I've been throwing these up on YouTube. So I'm going to put the camera back on you. Just smile or do a Mr. Beast YouTube face. Big smile. There we go.
No, I hate cameras. I hate cameras.
And for those of you listening on Spotify or listening on Apple Podcast, I've been trying to upload these to YouTube as well. So people have asked me to do that over the years, and I've reluctantly done it a little bit. And I got a lot better at Equip because we recorded 19 episodes from the John Deere booth, and we got all of those either uploaded to YouTube or they're in queue for being on YouTube. And I'll take this interview with Kevin and just throw it up there on YouTube. So if you want to see what Kevin looks like or watch it or whatnot, you can do that on YouTube as well. So
always a pleasure, Paul.
Yeah, safe travels to Florida, and looking forward to hanging out with you in Sweet Home, Alabama, February 21 and 22.
Awesome.